Mar says in Masechtas Eruvin and Chavchesim days, Reb Zera, when he was too weak to learn, he would go and he would sit by the doorway of Reb Yehuda Bar Ami. Reb Yehuda Bar Ami would be inside learning Torah, and his Talmidim would come out, and this time when they would come out, he would get up, and by standing up for Talmidei Chachamim and fulfilling the mitzvah, Neisei v'takim v'yadata pnei zaken, in the words of Reb Zera, the akabel b'hu agra, at least I will receive reward for that. So it's a little difficult to understand. Reb Zera would Chalila do a mitzvah only to receive schar? I mean, isn't there a Mishnah Mefereshes in Masechtas Avay Tzvek the Ber Moshe from the Yerusha V'Rebbe Z'chen L'Vracha Al Tiyu Kavodim HaMeshamshem Meserav Al Manas L'Kabel Pras El rather have a Kavodim HaMeshamshem Meserav Shaloy Al Manas L'Kabel Pras, that the highest madrega of mitzvah is a mitzvah l'shem shemayim. And of course there are many madregas in Torah l'shma, but for him outright to say that akabel b'hu agra seems strange. That's the only reason Reb Zera performed mitzvahs? So the Moshe says a davar pella. We find in the Medrash, Amar Reb Abba HaKoyen Bar Papa, Kishayisi Ra Yesiya Shol B'nai Adam, when I see a group of people, I used to walk a different way. Not to burden on them. They shouldn't see me, and then they're going to have to stop and get up for me. When I said over these things to Rabbi Yossi Bar Zavida, he said to me, no, you have to pass by in front of them. And they have to see you and stand up before you. Why? Because the Atam Mezil de Yirah Shemayim. By them standing up for Talmidei Chachamim, you are bringing Yirah Shemayim into their hearts. So we see over here that the schar for fulfilling this mitzvah of being Mehader Pnei Zaken and being Mechaber Talmidei Chachamim is that one is Zaycha to Yirah Shemayim. Now, says the Ber Moshe, we can understand the words of Reb Zera. Eiken Mekamayim. If I don't have koyach to learn, I will stand by the Beis HaMedrash, get up for the Talmidei Chachamim as they come out, the yakabel v'hu agra, and I will receive my reward. The reward he was referring to was not the reward in Olam Haba, which of course would come regardless, but the reward, his official kavanah, was to be zecher to Yirah Shemayim. And when a person does something as a skula, to be a bigger erlich, to be zecher to Yirah Shemayim, that doesn't fall under the category of this isn't the kind of pras we were referring to. As a matter of fact, take a look at the Mishnah Vayter. The Mishnah says in Pirkei Avos, El rather serve Hashem shaloi al manas l'kabel pras. And what follows afterwards? The Yehi moira shemayim aleichem. Now there has to be some type of a connection over here. What is the union of Moira Shemayim to the union of Shalom Manas L'Kabel Pras? If anything, the objective of serving Hashem Shalom Manas L'Kabel Pras is an union of Ahavas Hashem Yisbarach. Out of love to Hashem, I want to do mitzvahs and I enjoy the mitzvahs. Yirah Shemayim would apparently pertain to abstaining from Aveiros. Rather, this is what the Mishnah wants to teach us. The Mishnah wants to teach us, even though it is also to fulfill mitzvahs on the Nas L'Kabel Pras, however, to do various different pu'ulos, that their chai is Yirah Shemayim, that isn't under the category of Kabbalah Pras. Adarabba, the Mishnah says, V'hi Moira Shemayim Aleichem, if you have a way of doing something that's going to generate your Yirah Shemayim, do it, and do it for that sake alone, and there's nothing wrong with it. And this is an important distinction in terms of what we view as being Makabel Schar. For example, the Avnei Nezer says in the Hagdama to the Sefer Aglei Tal that there are those who make a mistake. They think that if a person enjoys learning, then that's a sign that he's not learning Torah L'Shma. After all, he enjoys it. So the Aglei Tal, there can't be a bigger mistake than that. When a person enjoys learning, when a person enjoys davening, when he enjoys doing mitzvahs, that is a sign that he's doing the mitzvah right. The issue isn't that this is his reward. The issue is that this is a siman of Hashras Hashchina. It's a siman of kedusha. It's a siman of tahara. It's a siman that his Torah is accomplishing what it is supposed to accomplish, and that is to associate his neshama with its maker. And perhaps that is pshat in the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, schar mitzvah, mitzvah. Even though, in terms of the regular schar that a person has for mitzvahs, which indeed he has schar, a reward that can't even be measured by anything down here in this world, yafa sha'achas, shal kaidas ruach b'yelam abba mikol chayi olam hazeh. But despite that, there should be an objective to serve Hashem for ahavas Hashem, not to think about his personal reward. The perfect mitzvah is l'shem shemai. However, there is another inyan in doing a mitzvah, and that is every time a person does a mitzvah, he creates a malach, and that malach pushes him to do another mitzvah. Mitzvah gezeres mitzvah. Every time a person does a mitzvah properly, he generates an atmosphere of kedusha that motivates him for more mitzvahs and more kedusha, and makes him yearn for a closeness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the Mishnah says, schar mitzvah mitzvah. A perfectly acceptable schar for a mitzvah, meaning doing the mitzvah for this objective doesn't decrease the level of lishma when, if your intention here is to draw a greater cheshik to do the next mitzvah, which is indeed what happens when you do a mitzvah properly. And the Mishnah continues, char aveira aveira. In other words, I'm going to abstain from eating something without a reliable hashgacha because I know I'm going to get a tremendous reward for this in Olam Haba. That is definitely true. You will get a tremendous reward for this in Olam Haba. And a person says, no, I'm not going to eat this, or I'm not going to engage in that avera because I am scared of the punishment. A very valid form of reasoning. It's the elementary level of Yiras Shamayim. Without that level of Yiras Shamayim, you can't go on to the next madrega of Yiras Shamayim. But there is a higher madrega of Yiras Shamayim. And that is a person doesn't sin out of awe and fear of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Not so much per se his personal punishment. So again the Mishnah says, schar aveira aveira. If someone abstains from doing an aveira thinking, if I do this, the Yetzer Hara is going to schlep me into a bigger aveira, and I'm going to be pushed away further from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what holds him back. This is not only a necessary form of reasoning. This is a qualified form of reasoning to be in the category of doing things l'shma. Zalman Saraskov the Lutzker Rav points out. The Gemara says that Rav Shimon HaMisyuni darshened every single S in the Torah. Every time the word S, Aleph Saf appeared, he darshened it that it comes to associate one thing to another. He always pointed out what the added thing is, what the association is. However, when he came to us, he said, I think I was wrong all along. Because if I were to be consistent, I would say there is something that should be associated to the fear of Hashem, as if there was something else that we have to fear. And how could that be? So therefore he was pirish. He said, I dismiss all of my drashas. I cannot continue this mahalach anymore. Obviously the kavanah in S must be something else. Achabar Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva said, no. You're right. When you dash at S, it always comes to associate something. And that includes the S Hashem Lekechatira. What are we associating to the fear of Hashem? The fear of Talmidei Chachamim. L'Rabbeis Talmidei Chachamim. The fear of Talmidei Chachamim, the honor to Talmidei Chachamim, is a stepping stool. It's a way of lifting our madrega to feel the year of the Rebbeinu Shalom. Because we on our own may have done too many aveiros, and we may be deficient in too many mitzvahs to actually have true ahavas Hashem and yiras Hashem, but HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us a solution. We can sort of link on and connect the toe to another entity that is close enough to the Rebbeinu Shalom. Through being mechabed and honoring Talmidei Chachamim properly, we are benefiting from the Talmud Chacham's Yiras Shamayim. The Talmud Chacham's Mariv, the Talmud Chacham's Black Gemara, is with a much greater level of Lishma, and therefore it's mamshach a greater Yiras Shamayim and Amunah on him. Maybe we can't daven that way, we can't learn that way, but by being mechabed him and honoring him, so that Yiras Shamayim comes through to us. The Talmud Chacham becomes a conduit for Yiras Shamayim. And that's where the pasuk says, that they say the talking, the Yadata Pnei Zaken, and the Yeresa Melekacha Ani Hashem. This will lead to Yiras Shamayim. There was a famous Gevir in Volozhin by the name of Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak was a great Talmud Chacham in his own right and did much for the Talmidei Chachamim in his town. Occasionally he would travel off to distant cities and he would come home, he would bring his wife presents. Once his wife said, "Do me a favor, don't bring me any jewelry, but bring a shas, a complete shas," which was not something taken for granted in those days. It was also not something easily acquired. If you learned Bava Kama, then you worked very hard to get a Bava Kama Gemara, but the whole shas, just to be part and parcel of a Jewish household, like a mezuzah on the door, was not easy to come by. But Rav Yitzchak, through his connections and through his money managed, he came home with a whole beautiful shas. And Rav Yitzchak and his Rebbitzin, who were Nadvanim and Oiskim B'tzarchei Tzibur, made a hachlata. They announced in shul that this shas was available on loan for anyone who wanted to learn. There was obviously no charge. The only Tanai was that before you take the second Gemara, you return the first. And Rav Yitzchak's wife was in charge of this library. The Shagasaria, in the course of his wanderings, came to this town, and he sat in the Beis HaMedrash and he learned. And from time to time, he also came and borrowed a Gemara here. Rav Yitzchak's wife, realizing, despite the fact that the Shagasaria was officially disguised, that this was an Adam Godo, said, "I don't want to take the achrayus of the Bittul Torah for you to have to come here and ask for the Gemara. Do me a favor. Every day I will send my Mesharis, one of my servants, to your abode, and he will ask you what you need, and he'll be happy to bring you the Gemara." And that's how it went. Before the Shagasaria left, he said to this Rebbitzin, "I bench you that you should have two sons that are going to lighten up the eyes of Klal Yisrael. In the schus of you're allowing me to learn Torah with such menuchas and nefesh. The first son will gather Kehilos Barabim and teach Klal Yisrael the entire Shas. The second son won't even need a Shas because he's going to know the entire Torah Baal Peh." And who are these two sons? Reb Chaim Volozhiner, he was the one who started basically what is the forerunner of all yeshivos, Volozhin, that indeed taught Klal Yisrael Shas, and Reb Zalman Volozhiner, who indeed knew Shas Baal Peh. And it's interesting that Reb Chaim Volozhiner himself and Reb Zalman were considered the Talmidim of the Vilna Gaon, associating themselves to their Rebbeim their entire life. There are many Gedolei Yisrael, and we know about their Rebbeim, but the special relationship between Reb Chaim Volozhiner and the Vilna Gaon is legendary. So we see how this sort of goes with Yerusha. The honoring of a Talmud Chacham, the kavod of a Talmud Chacham, the will to associate oneself to a Talmud Chacham, it generates this atmosphere of Yerushalayim. It brings down beautiful doros, and the children inherently pick it up. And they too have this automatic need to associate themselves with someone from a previous generation. In Pirkei Avos, Perik Hey Mishnah Chavav, Yehuda ben Taimah gives us shiurim as to the various stages of life. And it looks like some type of a bell-shaped curve. It goes, first it ascends. Then Chamishanim L'Mikra, then after Shanim he matures L'Mishnah, then Shul Yitzben Shmei Nefri L'Chuppah, then Arboim L'Bina, then Chanishim L'Eitza, then Shishim L'Zikna, then Shivim L'Seiva, that's called Seiva Taiva, and then it turns around and starts apparently to come down. Then Shmoinim L'Gvura, then Shmoinim already requires extra strength to be able to survive, then Tishim L'Shuach, he's already bent over if he's 90 years old, and if he's a Ben Meah, if he's 100 years old, he's Ki'ilu Nef, the other Abatul Min Ha'ayim. But many of the Mefarshim explain that that is not the kavanah of the Tana at all. Just the opposite. The Tana is teaching us when a person turns 80 years old and his koiches of taiva and tanugim begin to diminish. So as a result, his koyach and ruchnius becomes much stronger. Then Tishim, if he's zeicha to be 90 years old, Lasuach, from the Lashon of Sicha, Tfilah la'ani, Kiyata, Fulifnei Hashem Yishbach Sicha, he has a tremendous koyach at Tfilah, because he's so much more connected to his neshama. His guf means less and less. It both physically and spiritually is becoming diminished and subservient to the neshama. And Beneya, if he's eichel to be 100 years old, so his kilu mesva avri batlam and oilam, his guf is as if completely gone, and he's more neshama than guf, And you should really be mechabed him and ask him to be mispalel for you. And indeed, Chazal tell us there are two mitzvahs over here, mitnei seva takum and the adarta pnei zaken. Seva is an old man. Just for being old, for that alone we're mechuyev to give him derech eretz, we're mechuyev to stand up for him. The adarta pnei zaken, and there's an additional mitzvah of hider for pnei zaken. Zaken is misha kana chachma. Even if he's young, he may be considered old in years in terms of his maturity. And this mitzvah of mitnei seva takum, just standing up for an old man, even if he's just seva b'shanim, is particularly applicable to our generation. Because anyone who's old, the chances are, went through the most difficult period in Jewish history. The Satmar Rebbe Chaim Levacha once said, when a man was begging him to be mispalel for him, he said, go to any yid who has a number on his arm and still puts on tefillin. You can give him a krittel. Because any yid that had emunah and still believed in the Rebbeinu Shalom, despite the unsurmountable travails that he was crushed under during those years, that yid will have a place in Gan Eden, unrivaled by anything we can possibly do today. Because no one's emunah was tested like this person. And if he can turn around and raise a family and be mechanech them with Torah mitzvahs afterwards, so we can't say that we would do the same, because Baruch Hashem, we were never tested, and hopefully we never will. So we're not just getting up for an elder yid, we're not just being mechabed an older person in our generation. We're being mechabed the nitzlius of Klal Yisrael, the tremendous kayach amunah in these people to be able to pass the ball of Torah and Yerushalayim and amunah to the next generation, despite what would have seemed to have been an impossible thing to do. And being that the Rebbeinu Shalom pays back midah keneged midah. So being mechabed an older person, in turn means that a Kadosh Baruch Hu has to pay back by people being mechabed you. That means that you have to be zeicha to become old. But, in other words, the bracha of arichas yamim. Indeed, the Or Chaim HaKadosh says, mitnei seva takum, because of seva takum, because of the many nisyonis and difficulties when a person gets older, therefore takum, he should arise to do tshuva beforehand, so he should be zeicha to seva. He teaches mitnei seva because of being zeicha to seva, therefore takum. Get up to do tshuva beforehand. The hadarta pnei zaken. The Mishnah tells us in the Masechta Sukkah that the Zakenim were dancing and they were saying, Ashra yaladeseinu, shaloi baisha sikneineinu. How fortunate is our younger years, where we remained erlich despite the nisyonis of younger years, so that we're not embarrassed when we're old. So the Or Chaim HaKadosh yadarta pnei zaken. Be mechabed your own older years by acting right when you're younger. A person walks down the street, and a bus passes by, and there's a picture on the bus. A picture that no human being should see, never mind the Yerushalayim, never mind the Ben Torah, never mind anyone who believes there's a Rebbeinu Shalom on the world. And so this person takes off his glasses, this person turns away, this person turns around and waits for the bus to pass. So you would think that he avoided an aveira. He turned around, he did not sin. It's more than that. He brought upon himself a cloud of kedusha, a cloud of holiness. It is considered, it is one of the rare instances where turning away from thing is tantamount to actually doing something. Closing your eyes, turning down the street, being careful when it comes to not seeing what you're not supposed to see is not just sidestepping an aveira. It is engaging kedusha. It is absorbing holiness. Thus the Shaimer Emunim says, he brings this from others, that it's a murdik and the time to be mispalel to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person turns away from something that he knows he should not see, it is a tremendous time where the Sha'arim Shemayim open up and chaperah in that very moment, because while you're engaging in toiling yourself in this cloud of kedusha as a result of your actions, you never know. There can be windows available over here to knock on that were inaccessible to you until now. Chaperah, right there and then as you're turning around. Be mispalel. The Shlomo Chaim Bracha points out that really this is how Rashi explains the pasuk. Daber el koladas b'nei Yisrael v'yamarta aleim kedoshim tiyu. You shall be holy. So Rashi explains, Hevet Perusha Minhu Arayis. It means to separate yourself from Arayis, Minhu Aveira, and Aveira. Shekal Makom Shetamait together Erva. Whenever you find a fence around Erva, when a person says, I'm not going to walk down that street, I'm not going to look, I'm going to turn around, I'm going to be careful, it's not just avoiding sin, it's more than that. Atamoitse Kedusha. There is Kedusha that automatically fills in the vacuum. You are now a different person. You are a person that turned away. You stand on a higher level. One of the letters to the Stipler, so someone writes that he's also brachin, he read in Svarim that if a person is over this Aveira and other kinds of Aveiras that are similar, he loses all of his koyach of Kedusha, his Torah and mitzvahs afterwards, go to the Sitra Achra, go to the koyach HaTumah, he doesn't feel like going on. So the Stipler writes to him, there's no such a thing, really, as a person's Torah or mitzvahs going to the Sitra Achra. They do quote things like that if a person's over a certain Aveira, it's befrat in Yonah Kedusha, his Torah and mitzvahs are directed not to the correct place. So the Stipler explains, you have to understand what that means. When a person is Mekayim a mitzvah, so he creates a mitzvah malach that pushes him and drives him to do another mitzvah. It's mitzvah geveres mitzvah. The more you learn, the more you break through, the more you want to learn. When a person is over a certain Aveira, so what happens is, he learns, he does the mitzvah, and instead of that mitzvah driving him and pushing him to do more mitzvahs, there's a block. It's prevented from pushing him more in the right direction. That doesn't mean he doesn't have schar for the mitzvah that he did. That doesn't mean he's not going to be rewarded for his mitzvahs, that his mitzvahs are for nil. It just means that he doesn't have this advantage of whatever mitzvah he did driving him to do more mitzvahs until he does tshuva on the other. That's number one. The second thing the Stipler explains is, Ena Chanami, the Svarim HaKadoshim say, a person's over a certain Aveira, he was not careful with his eyes, he was not careful with the way he was thinking. So it says, Taka, there's a certain koyach hatumah that he now has to deal with. However, you have to remember the other side of the coin. That for every time he turns away, for every time he does his best to be Mesiach Das, because you can't really battle a bad machshava. The trick is to be Mesiach Das. The trick is to divert your attention elsewhere. If a person makes that attempt, so he brings on himself a great level of Kedusha. You have to understand, the Stipler reiterates this again and again. When you say that by being over the Aveira, there's a certain tumah that comes on him, for every time that he turned away or attempted to turn away, there's also a certain level of Kedusha that comes on him. And these things neutralize each other. And again, that's what Rashi is saying. Kedoshim Tiyu, you are absorbing Kedusha. Rav Schwabchen Levach in the Sefer Me'en Beis HaSheva points out a very fascinating thing, lahalacha, based on this. What happens when you call someone up to be Mesader Kedushim? What is the Birchas Eresin? Asher Kedushanu the Mitzvah, so the Tzivanu al Ha'arayis. So the Rishonim will ask a kasha. Where do you find a bracha on an Isser? All brachas that we make are a bracha on a mitzvah saseh. Asher Kedushanu the Mitzvah, the Tzivanu al Netzelos Yidayim, L'Satei B'Tzitzit, L'Niach Tefillin, to light Shabbos neighbors. All brachas are before we do something. We don't have a bracha that we make for not doing an Aveira. The piece of tray for meat laying in front of him, there's no bracha not to eat the tray for meat and then to walk away from it. Brachas are only before kiyum aseh, before positive commands. What is the basis for this bracha under the chuppah? We were commanded to stay away from arayis. Where do we get a bracha out of this? The Shwabchan Levacha suggests that the bracha is on the mitzvah saseh of kedoshim tiyu. That this is an exception. It's a positive commandment. Kedoshim tiyu. Bring kedusha upon yourself by being careful the way you think, by being extra careful at the different mediums that come into your house where, as a result, when used the wrong way, people see the wrong things. This is a mitzvah saseh. Okay, so granted it's a mitzvah saseh, however, we have a rule that even a mitzvah saseh, if there is no physical action, you also don't have a basis for a bracha. The point in case would be a tshuvas harashba that says that there is no bracha, for example, in regard to the mitzvah of hashmatav kesafir. When a Shemitah year comes, unless a person made a prosbo, you are not permitted to collect a loan. So a person comes over to you and says, here, I want to pay back the loan. You're mechuyev to say, I don't want to take back the loan because Shemitah passed, and as a result of Shemitah, I'm not supposed to collect it from you. Of course, the loiva, the borrower, can say, I want to give it to you, and then the malva can take it. But to be mekayim this mitzvah of Hashmatas Ksafim, you are obligated to say to him, I'm pulling back. I'm not asking for it. So true, that's the mitzvah to say. Still, the Rashba says there's no bracha for that mitzvah to say. Why? Because there's no kiyum hamaisa. I'm not physically doing something. You can say, and then go and put on tefillin. But what are you doing over here? There's no physical act over here. You're just making a statement that you don't want to collect the money, or you're not obligating the person to give you the money. And you don't have enough of a basis for a bracha. That's not enough of a maisa for a bracha. Another example would be bittul chametz. That's also a mitzvah to say, to be mevatel the chametz, yet there is no bracha on the bittul of chametz. There's a bracha on the burning of chametz. And even though we make that bracha before the bedika, the night before, but essentially the bracha is on destroying the chametz. On bittul, saying that the chametz is hefker, that alone doesn't justify a bracha. Why? Because it's not a maisa. You're saying it. The ikar mitzvah is believe in your heart for you to be mevatel the chametz, and that is not a physical act. You can say al netilas lulav because then you're taking a lulav. You're physically doing something. But to be mevatel the chametz, believe enachanani, it may be a mitzvah say as opposed to a loisa say, but you don't have a physical act. That's why Rav Shlomo explains there's no bracha on Kriya Shema. Why don't I say kedoshim in the Tzvayta v'Tivanu to read Shema? Because the ikar mitzvah of Shema is the kavanah in your heart. And again, for kavanah in your heart, even though it's technically a mitzvah say, but it's not enough of a physical say for a bracha. So again, we come around to our kasha. So what then is the basis for the bracha under the chuppah of Asher Kedoshanu the Mitzvayta v'Tivanu while arayis the birchas eretz? Even if you're going to say kedoshim to you, that a yid always has to make an attempt to be vigilant, to keep his mind a bit tahara. Let's say that's a mitzvah saseh, but it's not a mitzvah saseh where there's an action. So where do we get the right to make a bracha? Dr. Schwab, we see from here a Murray the Kachiddush. The Yetzirah for arayis, the Yetzirah for a person to think and see the wrong thing is so powerful that avoiding that Yetzirah is considered a maisa. It's a physical act of doing. Rav Shamshu Afal Hirsch explains that in Parshas Yisroi, by the first luchais, the pasuk says, "Lo sachmid," don't be jealous. In the second luchais, in Parshas V'Yaschanan, it says, "Lo sisave." What is the difference? So the Rishonim explain, "Lo sachmid chenda is dafka if you do a maisa. You do something to try to get a hold of your friend's house. Lo sisave is even believe, even in your heart. In the second luchas, the Torah is demanding more of us than in the first luchas. The Torah is demanding, don't even crave in your heart something that belongs to your friend. So take a closer look at the second luchas. When it comes to Eishes Liyecha, even in the second luchas, it says, V'lo sachmaid Eishes Liyecha. Again, the Lashon Chemda is used, as opposed to everything else where it says, V'lo sisave beis Liyecha, Sedeyu, V'avdei, V'amosai, Shoyre, V'chamoy, V'chol Ashur Liyecha. But by Eishes Liyecha, you still have the Lashon of Lo sachmaid. Why? Dr. Schwab, because when it comes to Inyanim Avarayis, and a person works on himself to keep his machshava b'tahara, that is always considered a maisa. That's not just something that is in his mind. The Torah says this is a physical mitzvah. A person that made an attempt, a person that tried. That's what the Torah wants from us, to try. The pasuk says, "V'lo yisuru acharei levavchem." The Lachavitcher explained, acharei levavchem. The first time someone sees something, he's perhaps caught off guard. He's not punished for that. The time is, but did you go back to think about it? Or did you do your best to brush it out of your mind? Afterwards. When a person does his best to keep his machshava b'tahara, to keep his house clean, where he dafka does not buy that newspaper, where he says, I don't have to have the radio going 24 hours, let me put a tape in instead, or let it just be quiet for a while. something sometimes unheard of in certain houses. That is not just avoiding a bad thing. That is a kiyum ha-mitzvah. Simply because the taiva, the yetzer hara for arayos, is so overwhelming, so powerful, that any attempt to block it, the Torah considers a physical act. You went to war for kedoshim. It's not just sidestepping an aveira. The Torah considers it as if you took a sword and battled the Talmud. So this is true both in a negative sense and positive sense. Here, aveira, thinking about aveira when it comes to eishes v'yecha is always a ma'isa. Even if it's just here, it's considered an action. That's when it comes to eishes v'yecha, the Torah, even in the second luchais, uses the lashon of loisachmai as opposed to loisachmai. On the other hand, when it comes to battling the bad machshava and our most sincere attempt to keep our minds b'tahara, this is considered a ma'isa ha-mitzvah, to the extent that you have the unprecedented right to make a bracha. Asher kedoshim b'mitzvah b'tzivanu al harayis. Doing your best to divert your machshava away from something that it shouldn't be thinking about is the same mitzvah to say of eating a piece of matzah as putting on tefillin and putting a mezuzah on your door. However, let's not get the wrong message over here. The Torah is not saying turn away and live in some desert island like a hermit to make sure that you're not going to hear anything wrong and you're not going to see anything wrong. Sagt der Sam Sofer, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael kedoshim to you. Besides the Pashup Shat that Rashi teaches us, that Moshe Rabbeinu gathered all of Klal Yisrael together to teach them Pashup Kedoshim, because the majority of the essentials of Torah are explained in this Pasha. The Chassam Sofer says there's another message over here. Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to explain this message of Kedoshim to you, El Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael, saying you have to live like a Yid, you have to watch your eyes, you have to watch your machshava. But you also have to live amongst Yidden. Naturally, we have to do anything within our power to avoid being anywhere where we're going to see the wrong thing. Rav Andrei and Lebracha said you can lose 6 months learning in Lakewood with one subway ride in Manhattan. And Rav was nifter many decades ago. It didn't get better since then. But on the other side of the coin, the Torah is saying you have to live amongst people, you have to talk to people, you have to deal with people, and still maintain this level of Kiddush and Tahara. If you consider the Beis HaMedrash all day, that's fine. But if you're in your office in Manhattan, then you have the same chiyuv of Kiddushim to you, within the context of however you can run an office, like a Yid. Don't make the mistake of thinking because I have to leave the Beis HaMedrash and I have to be on the street, therefore all of these Gedarim collapse because there's nothing I can do about it. So again, the Chassam Sofer says, the entire congregation of Klal Yisrael is standing over here, and the Kedoshim to you applies to all of you together as a unit, regardless of where you are or with whom you are with. The Sfasema says that the Daber el Kol Adas B'nei Yisrael Kedoshim to you is directly linked, because the more a person is mevatel himself to the Klal, the more he considers himself part of Klal Yisrael, and what can I do to help others, and how can I live to help others, that is the most compelling standard of life that's going to lead to Kiddush. Actually, the Sfasema says more. The Sfasema says, She'eni yachol liskos la-Kiddush. No one can truly be zeicha to this level of holiness. Rak only they habitul l'Klal Yisrael. Only if he considers himself part of Klal Yisrael, he's willing to be mevatel himself for Klal Yisrael. And that's why Parshas Kedoshim, which begins with the command that we remain holy, is followed by the vast majority of the mitzvahs that are bin adam l'chaveri in this week's Parsha. So all the mitzvahs that follow, ish yimayv aviv tero, the ahavta l'reacha kamaycha, the mitzvah of leaving over leket shikhem peya for the poor people, lo tiknoivu, lo sechachshu, lo sechakru, not lying, lo sechshavu b'shmil l'shaker, lo sashak es reacha, not to withhold the wages of a hired worker, lo sigzah, lo sneyiva lo sita mirshah, not giving a person the wrong advice, even your competitor. The judge that has to be erlich to all sides, whether to the poor or to the rich. The tzedek tishbet amisecha, the mitzvah of being done people l'kav chos, loiselech rachel bi'amecha. The love of rechilus and lashon hara, loisamad al dam yacha, not to stand idly by when your friend is in danger. There are 13 mitzvahs to say and 38 mitzvahs lois to say in this week's pash. the vast majority of them are mitzvahs ben adam lechaveiro. Dr. Safenis, this is all included in kedoshim to you. Kedoshim to you, keeping your mind holy, keeping your mind clean, is the hakdama to all of these mitzvahs. Moshe Rabbeinu gathered Kol Hadas B'nai Yisrael and said, the primary function of the Yid is to keep his machshava b'tahara. You know how you're going to do that? By being mevatel yourself for Klal Yisrael. The more you live just for yourself, the less the chance that your machshava or that your eyes are going to think and see the right things. Raslan would rather explain that kedoshim to you is sort of a message, not so much a command. Kedoshim to you. If you're going to be holy, whether you like it or not, ki kadosh ani Hashem. Every Yid is a chelik l'kein ma. And being that ki kadosh ani, therefore, you're going to have to come to your tikkun. You're going to have to sooner or later be purified and cleansed and come to the level of kedoshim. This is a fact. There's nothing to argue about. Kedoshim to you. You're going to have kedoshim. By hook or crook, whether you like it or not. But you can do it the easy way or the hard way. So being that it's a fact that kedoshim to you, why do it the hard way? Take the initiative on your own. When the tzaddik of Shalom of Kamenke was young, he was referred to as the Ilui of Rava. That was the city that he came from. When the time came for him to get married, an Usher Muflag, a rich person, grabbed him as a husband for his daughter. This rich man was very proud, and he took the young Shalomo to his Rebbe, the Chayza of Lublin, a tzaddik that the father-in-law was accustomed to travel to. So young Shalom, the new chassan, was very excited traveling with his father-in-law to Lublin for Shabbos. Friday night, after the Tish, the Oshir asked the Rebbe, the Oshir asked the Chayza to test the chassan. Because after all, he was the Ilui of Rava, the genius of Rava. So the Oshir wanted his money's worth. What does the Rebbe see? What a great chassan he got. The chassan was prepared for this. He had been brushing up for quite a while. So the Rebbe called the chassan over. They went into a room, and the Rebbe asked his gabbai to bring him a chumash vayikra. And the chassan was somewhat taken aback by this. As a matter of fact, years later, Rav Shalom Kamenke himself, when he repeated this story to the Imrei Noyam, to the Jikava, was said to have lifted the Jikava's hands, and he said to him in Yiddish, "Herst Meir Leben, you hear my dear friend Meir to life. Es ist mir poshut angegangen a gelächter. I was laughing. Here I have the name, the Yili, the great genius. And I was brushing up for this. I was preparing myself for this test. I assumed the Chayza was going to ask me a steer in the Rambam and tell me to enter it. I assumed the Chayza was going to point out a difficult ktsois to me and ask me to resolve it. What does the Chayza ask for? A chumash, vayikra. I laughed. I couldn't stop laughing. But the Chayza didn't laugh. He opened up the chumash, the Pash of Kedoshim. And he said to me, you know what Rashi says on the pasuk Kedoshim to you? I couldn't believe it. That's what he's asking me. He's testing me like he would test a third grader. But look, the Rebbe asks, so you have to answer. So I started telling him what Rashi says on Kedoshim to you. I didn't have to look into the chumash. I just told him, Rashi says, have a perushim and a arois. Separate yourself from any type of immorality and avera and from sin. And I went on to quote the rest of the Rashi, Shekal Mokem Shatumoitze Geder Erva. Wherever you find a fence around Erva, Atumoitze Kedusha, you automatically find holiness. And I must tell you, Rav Shalom Kamenke said, when I started repeating the Rashi, I couldn't hold myself back from laughing. But as I started to repeat it, the Rebbe started saying the words with me. We were simultaneously saying the words. And as the Rebbe started joining me saying the words, my body began to shudder. As the Rebbe started saying the words of this Rashi together with me, I began to shiver like I never did before. I began to shake to the point that I couldn't stand. When the Rebbe finished saying the Rashi with me, I was overwhelmed with my convulsions. They had to carry me to a bed. I shivered. I was freezing. They had to bring blanket after blanket, and it wasn't enough. Shalom Karmika, deep in thought, concluded his story as he related it to the Jikva Rebbe. He said, "Trust me, my dear friend Meir, even now when I tell you the story, I still shiver." Let's take a closer look at this story. Perhaps what the Chayzer was really doing was explaining to Reb Shalom Shat in the very first Rashi in this week's Sedra. Daber el Koladas B'nai Yisrael, the first Rashi in Kedoshim. Zakt Rashi, Melamed, this teaches us, Shenemra Pasha Zu B'Hakel, that this Pasha was said with all of Klal Yisrael assembled. Why? Because the majority of the essentials of Torah are dependent on it. In other words, they're summarized in this week's Pasha. And then Moshe Rabbeinu began with kedoshim team. The emphasis, the Medrash goes into great detail to explain exactly how Moshe Rabbeinu conveyed the Torah to Klal Yisrael. In regard to all other parashiyos, it went this way. First, Moshe Rabbeinu summoned his brother Aaron and taught him privately. Obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu was able to convey the Torah to a madrega that only Aaron could comprehend. After the lesson, Aaron took a seat to Moshe's left. Moshe Rabbeinu then would proceed to the second step, and that would be to summon Aaron's sons. And in their father's presence, Moshe again taught them that particular Torah passage or halacha on a level that would correspond to their understanding. Step 3. Aaron and his sons seated themselves next to Moshe, and the Zakanim were summoned. And Moshe repeated the same Torah passage to the Zakanim in a manner that was equal to their level. The Zakanim were great, but they were not at the same level of Aaron or his sons. And finally, all the Jewish men were summoned. With all the above-mentioned groups, Aaron, Aaron's sons, and the Zakanim still present during the session, Moshe now taught the Torah once more. And obviously now Moshe Rabbeinu explained it in a manner that could be grasped by all those attending. The exception to this was Parshas Kedoshim. The Medrash tells us Parshas Kedoshim was taught to Klal Yisrael in a completely different fashion. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu, don't follow the conventional teaching method. The Rebbeinu Shem commanded Moshe, after the Rebbeinu Shem himself, Kaviyachol, taught Moshe Rabbeinu the mitzvahs of this parsha, the Rebbeinu Shem told Moshe Rabbeinu, don't do it step by step, beginning with Aaron, his sons, the Zakanim, and only then Klal Yisrael. Instead, call an assembly of the entire people, including the women and children. Teach Parshas Kedoshim to everyone at the same time. Thus, Parshas Kedoshim begins Daber el Koladas B'nai Yisrael. And that's what Rashi means. Melamed shenem b'Parshas Zu B'Hakel. Initially, when Moshe Rabbeinu taught this parsha, it was to every single yid at one time. But now the question is, why was Kedoshim taught to every member of the nation in this manner? Why not follow the usual sequence? So there are two answers in the Medrash. One is, as Rashi just told us, that this parsha contains a multitude of basic halachas, the basic principles of Torah, the Yehavta. The Medrash specifically points out that you have the Yehavta l'Reacha K'maycha in this week's parsha. And we know that Hillel said to the Ger, if you understand the Yehavta l'Reacha K'maycha, then you understand the entire Torah. When that Ger came to Hillel and asked, teach me the entire Torah on one foot, so that's what Hillel answered. Whatever you wouldn't want done to yourself, don't do it to a friend. That's the Yesod of the entire Torah. Rashi doesn't specify the Yehavta l'Reacha K'maycha, but Rashi just says in general, you have the major Yesodos of Yehadus in this week's parsha. Another reason the Medrash explains why Kedoshim was different, why Moshe Rabbeinu originally transmitted Parshas Kedoshim to all of Klal Yisrael at one time, is because all of the Aseret HaDibros are paralleled in Parshas Kedoshim. And just like the Aseret HaDibros was said to all of Klal Yisrael, men, women, and children, Parshas Kedoshim was to be conveyed in the same manner. And the Medrash explains how all of the Aseret HaDibros are in Parshas Kedoshim. What's the first of the Aseret HaDibros? And Parshas Kedoshim begins in a similar vein. V'yamarta leim kedoshim tiyu ki kodesh ani Hashem Elokeichem. What is the second of the Aseret HaDibros? Lo yeh lecha lehim echayim al panai. And in Parshas Kedoshim we read, Al tifnu elu elina, ve'lehem asecho leisasu lechem. The third of the Aseret HaDibros, you shall not pronounce the name of Hashem in vain. And in Parshas Kedoshim, we find the pasuk v'lo yishabu v'shmi la shaka. The fourth of the Aseret HaDibros, Zachos Yemashavas L'Katshai, and in Parshas Kedoshim we find V'yas Shavsai Say Tishmayu. The fifth of the Aseret HaDibros, Kavod Esavicha V'Simecha. In Parshas Kedoshim we have the mitzvah of Yira. Ish Imai V'Adav Tiro. What is the sixth of the Aseret HaDibros? Lo Sirtzach. In Parshas Kedoshim we read Lo Samid Al Dam Reyacha. You shouldn't stand idly by. When you see your friend being killed, you have to do whatever you can to stop it. The seventh of the Aseret HaDibros, Lo Sinaf. In Parshas Kedoshim we have Isha Sheyina Fesesha Isha Sheyina Fesesha Seyeyum Lo Siyumah. The eighth of the Aseret HaDibros, Lo Signaf. In Parshas Kedoshim we have Lo Tignayv. As a matter of fact, technically speaking, the real lav of not stealing is in Lo Tignayv. Lo Signaf of the Aseret HaDibros refers to stealing people. There's that famous story that's attributed to many tzaddikim, some say to the Kotzka. When he was a little boy, he was in shul learning. The shamish came in and noticed that the pushka was missing, so he accused the little boy. So he grabbed the potential tzaddik, the soon-to-be great tzaddik, but now he was only a little boy, and he began to shake him furiously, screaming, "What's the matter with you? How can you do this? Don't you know the pasuk says Lo Signayv?" And the little boy shot back, "What's the matter with you?" Still being suspended in the air. "Don't you know it's Lo Tignayv? The Lo Signayv doesn't refer to stealing money." But regardless, the parallel is still there. There's the issue of Geneva in whatever form in the Aseret HaDibros, and there's a parallel to it in Parshas Kedoshim. The ninth of the Aseret HaDibros, Lo Sana V'Riyacha Eid Shaker, and in Kedoshim you have corresponding to that the issue of Rechilas. You shall not go about as a talebearer, spreading stories about someone. And finally, the last of the Aseret HaDibros, Lo Yisachmod. And in Parshas Kedoshim you have, as pointed out before, the mitzvah V'Yahavta L'Reyacha Kamecha. And the only way not to be jealous is to be happy for a friend, to be genuinely happy for a friend. If you work on the need of V'Yahavta L'Reyacha Kamecha, so you're not jealous because you're happy that your friend has it. Uncle Pan. So again, the Medrash concludes, as explained earlier, just like the Aseret HaDibros were conveyed directly to all of Klal Yisrael, men, women, and children. So the same is true for Parshas Kedoshim, which is, in a sense, the Aseret HaDibros in greater detail. We skip the steps of first teaching it to Aaron and his level, and then Aaron's children and the Zekanim. We skip all of that, and Moshe Rabbeinu taught this Parsha to start with directly to all of Klal Yisrael. There was this need over here for everyone to initially hear it straight from Moshe Rabbeinu. I remember Rav Shor Zecher Tzadik Levracha, he used to give a Chumash Shmuz in Tarvadas. When it came to Parshas Kedoshim, he insisted that the entire Beis Medrash be there. That would be including the Mesivta that would be brought down. He always gave over his Chumash Shiur with much devotion, with a tremendous amount of Mesiras Nefesh to a certain extent, as if he's pouring out his whole heart. But by Parshas Kedoshim, it was even more so than any other week. He wanted everyone to be there. Now we know that there's a famous machlokes in Rashi and the Ramban how to touch the word Kedoshim. Rashi types Kedoshim, as we heard before, separation from immorality. And Rashi goes on to point out that wherever you have a geder in a royus, you automatically have Kiddush. The Ramban learns differently. The Ramban learns that Kedoshim here refers to a person staying away from being a novel b'reshus HaTorah. In other words, add holiness even to where technically you can't point out and say it's awesome. Someone may say to you, just show me where. Where does it say anywhere in Torah Shabbat or Torah Shabbat that you're not allowed to eat kosher Pesach pizza? You may point to this Ramban. There are certain things you just have to apply your neshama to. Let's go back to Rashi's pshat for a moment. We've mentioned many times that there's a bacher who wrote to the stipler and said, you know that time in and time out again, he has fallen short of what the Torah demands of us in terms of holiness, in terms of shmirat einayim, watching your eyes. And he feels, after reading the Torah, that if a person does not retain a level of holiness in the way that he looks at things, in the way that he thinks about things, in his actions and so on, it says all of his Torah gets shut out. The sitra achra, the koiches of tumah, takes a hold of his mitzvah, so he feels, what's the point of him going on and learning and davening? And the disciple answers him. This is brought down in the Sefer Klein of the Igros. So the disciple answers him two things. Number one, you should understand, when you have this lashon that your Torah goes to the sitra achra, or the Yetzer Hara takes a hold of your Torah and mitzvahs because of the averos that you did, that does not mean that you're not rewarded for your Torah. Any Yid, even the worst Rasha, performs a mitzvah, must be rewarded for that Torah. This lashon in the Zohar, that the sitra achra, that the koiches of tumah take a hold of your Torah and mitzvahs because of things that you did, because you didn't do proper tshuva before learning, that refers to a completely different aspect of limud HaTorah. We know that every mitzvah a person does triggers another mitzvah. It creates a drive for you to do another mitzvah. Every page of Gemara that you learn creates malachim that puts you to learn another page. Of course, the other way around is true as well. For every hour that you could learn and you don't, for every opportunity you have to perform a mitzvah and you skip it, then there are going to be malachim created that are going to stop you the next time you want to. That's how it is. Mitzvah gereris, mitzvah avera gereris are there. Now, unfortunately, there are indeed certain averas, so unless you do tshuva on it, when you do the mitzvah, instead of that mitzvah stationing itself within you to drive you to do another mitzvah, the sitra achra grabs it, and you don't have the automatic reflex to want to do another mitzvah, to want to learn another blot. But it doesn't mean you lose the blot that you learned. It just means that you have to continue to struggle. And furthermore, the disciple explains, yes, it's true that if a person is not careful in maintaining a level of tahara, there is a tumah that is inserted into him. But by that same token, every time a person makes an effort to turn away, every time the person tries, and the Torah was not given to angels, a person tries to stay the kedoshim and say, look, it doesn't make a difference how many times I fell through. I have to bounce back. I have to keep on trying. I have to at least say to the Rebbeinu Shalom, once a day I looked away. Once a day I tried to maintain a level of tahara. I tried to keep my machshava b'kedusha. Anytime you do that, or seriously attempt to do that, you inject within yourself a power of holiness. And remember, these things cancel each other out. So if you feel you haven't been careful with your eyes, the solution is not to get depressed and therefore give up. The solution is start being careful, and every time you're careful is going to cancel out the time that you're not careful. But what you have to understand, the way to be careful is to choose your environment. And that was the message the Chayzer was giving to the Kamenka. You may be very smart, young man. You may be considered a genius. But unless you have a Rebbe that you are machniya yourself to, unless you are in an environment in Kedusha, unless you learn not just to repeat the words of Torah, but to repeat the words of Torah from the tzaddik, with the tzaddik, with a sense of batel v'tzaynai, someone else may be smarter than you, then you're missing the main points of Torah. And that is what Moshe Rabbeinu gathered all of Klal Yisrael over here, precisely to give this message. Of course, from an intellectual perspective, Moshe Rabbeinu can teach the Torah on different level. He can teach it to Aaron on one level, which no one else would understand. Then to Aaron's children, then to the Zekanim, and finally on a different level to the masses. But Moshe Rabbeinu wants to make something very clear. When it comes to the Aseres HaDivros, when it comes to the Yesodis of Amunah, when it comes to the basis of Kedusha, the Yesodis of Yehadus, it's not the Shir Aleph, Shir Beis, the honor class, that's not the issue. When it comes to the main Yesodis of Amunah and Kedusha, it's not how smart you are. It's who are you associating yourself with? Who are you looking up to? Here lies the success of the transmission of Torah and Kedusha to the next star. And it's not so much your child's mark, it's who are his friends. Here lies the Yesodis of Yehadus.
This shir is distributed by Kolodas, 11 Stei Chemet Street, Yerushalayim. For donations, please call 02-5383-999. Fax 02-538-0267. Postbox 57035.